Welcome back to What You'll Learn. My name is Adam Ashton.
My name is Adam Jones. We just had an interview with Chris Guillebeau. We did his book, The $100 Startup, during the week. He's also the author of The Art of Non-Comformity, The Happiness Pursuit, and Born for This.
Nice. And he's got a brand new book called Side Hustle. And so it's all about, he said the $100 startup was a little bit more towards people quitting their jobs to do a startup, a business, but this is Side Hustle is more about try things on the side of your regular job. You don't have to quit your job, and maybe one day, who knows what could happen, but just start trying things on the side and you'll get a lot out of that.
Yeah, so good interview, man. I really enjoyed it. He's obviously a big business writer, best-selling author, but he's also a hardcore traveller. He's actually travelled every country in the world.
Every single country.
It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, very impressive. Mate, quickly, we've been harsh on Apple. I'm back on the bandwagon. No. I went to get a new battery and ended up getting a new phone for the...
Mate, new Apple sucks. I don't care what you say.
You're off them? Mate, you just got a new Apple laptop a week ago.
Yeah.
Oh, you can't.
Yeah, I know.
Anyway, back to Chris. Mate, Chris was a legend. He had a podcast called The Side Hustle School as well, so I'd check that out. Or his new book, Side Hustle. Or...
Yeah, get on the Chris man. Chris bandwagon.
Chris time.
Chrissy.
Hey, this is Chris Guillebeau. I'm the host of Side Hustle School, a daily podcast, and I'm also the author of the new Side Hustle book, and I'm a writer, traveler, entrepreneur.
Fantastic. We're keen to dive into the Side Hustle School. We've read the $100 Startup, and we want to dive into a few of your other books first as well. Maybe the Art of Non-Comformity. We're hoping to start off with the story of the 5 monkeys.
The story of the 5 monkeys. You could probably tell it better than... Because the challenge is, I write these books, and I wrote the book like 7 years ago. And so then I go out and do like radio interviews or something, and they're like, Chris, tell me about page 246. Like, what did you mean in the third paragraph? And I'm like, oh, I have no idea. But this one, like, I think like the monkey story, it's something about like, monkeys that are trapped in a jar or something, right? Take it from there.
Yeah. So basically there's 5 monkeys, and as soon as one wants to get away, the others learn that it's not so good to maybe break out from the herd, and they get punished as well. So they drag him down to conforming with everybody else.
Right. But then they start taking monkeys out of the jar. Like, it's coming back to me now. And then eventually, like, there's no monkey in the jar that actually that punishment or experienced that punishment. But yet somehow, like, they know you're not supposed to escape the cage, right? You're not supposed to go out. And like, why are you not supposed to go out? Well, nobody knows. It's just that, it's just the way it is. So obviously this is an analogy for a lot of things that we're told in life, like as kids, adolescents, even adults, like this is the way things work. And, I started my project, The Art of Non-Comformity, the book, but also the blog, my whole community. Like, the whole reason it exists is to show people like, hey, you can get out of the cage, basically. Like, there's another way. And there's something out there that's probably even better for you. And like, why not pursue that? Why not go down that road and see what happens?
Yeah. So I guess it's probably worth explaining what is the cage, because some people, I guess, might be in a cage and they don't even know they're in it. And what is the alternative? What's on the other side of getting out of the cage?
Yeah, great question. So I'm not in the business of like telling people what to do or like, this is how your life should be, et cetera. So, if you have, a traditional job and you're happy in that, and like you have no aspiration to travel or work for yourself, like it's fine, like whatever. I guess I'm trying to reach people who are a little bit dissatisfied or discontented, and they may not necessarily feel like they're in a cage, but they feel restricted in some way, or they feel frustrated. They feel like they look on the outside, they see like, oh, so-and-so was able to do this, but, like I can't do that, right? Or they had some advantage that I don't have. And so, basically I'm trying to like shine a spotlight on individuals who in different ways, have gotten out of the cage and have done something that matters to them, whatever that is. And then I try to, profile people from all over the world who've done that in different ways and I do that so that people can't look and say, oh, well, that's just like so-and-so. That's just Adam. Like he could do that, right? But not me, and so if you highlight lots of different stories, then you kind of break down that excuse.
For sure. And I guess what is, to continue this cage analogy, what are the reasons for people being stuck in the cages? They don't know what's out there, or is there another reason, like fear, or is there something else keeping them inside the cage?
Yeah, well, I think you hit on the two main reasons right there. Like they either don't know, because like this is the way things are, and this is the way our parents' generation did it. This is what my friends are doing. Like, so I don't know there's an alternative. And then once you become aware, like, oh, there actually is something out there. Well, there's fear, anxiety, insecurity, for all very good reasons. And so again, like I think the answer is not necessarily to tell people like, oh, be fearless. Like nobody's fearless, right? But to kind of say, it's okay. You can walk through this, and again, like you're not alone in doing this because other people have done it in different ways.
Yeah. So how do people like move through fear because a lot of people might be afraid, and then how do they move past that to do some of the things they probably want to do deep down?
Right. I guess it depends on what they want to do, but I guess for me, what I've found is like the more you pursue something, like the more your vision expands. Like I had this project of going to every country in the world, and that was an 11-year quest. And I didn't start that project like having not traveled the U.S. and like that was my. No, I traveled for like 5 years, and I was an aid worker. And like the more I did, the more I was like, oh, I want to go to 100 countries. And then as I got closer to that, I was like, that's actually kind of an easy goal because it's only half the countries in the world, and you can pick and choose the easy ones, right? Like if I get stuck somewhere, I'm just not going to deal with it. I'm not going to go to a dangerous country. So I never would have had that vision. The point is like to go to every country in the world had I not like taken some first steps to like go overseas and volunteer or go have my first trip to Europe or whatever. And so I always encourage people, like, don't worry about having a big vision. Like, just start with where you are. Just start with the small steps, because those are meaningful too. And but be careful, because once you go down the road of adventure, you don't know like where you're going to end up. Like you're probably going to have a bigger idea than when you first started.
Yeah, so that's a good spot. You don't have to have the big grand visions. Just start where you are. On that, so you've been to every country. Is there, whenever you hear of a new country being, being allowed, do you think, oh, I've got to go here to keep my status?
Yeah, you're like, shit, man, a new country. No, it doesn't actually happen that often, fortunately. In the whole 11 years that I did it, there was only one new country that came up, and that was South Sudan. Okay. And so when I started the quest, there were 192 UN member states. And now there's 193. So I actually did go to South Sudan as part of it. So there's lots of little breakaway, republics and like regions that are like, we're going to be independent, but to actually like get recognized by the UN is kind of a big thing.
Yeah, nice. In the Art of Non-Conformity, you talk about travel hacking. So do you need to be rich and loaded to be able to travel the amount you have in your life, or is there a few ways you can do it on the cheap?
Yeah, basically you have to be rich and loaded. That's the only way. Essentially, that's. Yeah, like you're screwed otherwise. No, actually, I did it very frugally. Like the first 100 countries cost about $30,000, like 30,000 US dollars. So it's not to say that 30,000 is a small amount of money, but like you're talking about going to 100 countries over like 5 years, like people pay that to go to university or to buy a car or all kinds of things. So. So I kind of learned as I went along, lots of little tips and tricks, and I write about that a bit on the blog sometimes.
Yeah, fantastic. And we're keen to transition towards your brand new book, Side Hustle. I guess to start us off, and we'll go a bit deeper than this, but I guess what is a side hustle, and why should we consider taking one up? Yeah,
so Side Hustle is an income-generating project, and I kind of focus on something that you do without quitting your day job. Which is key because I don't know about you guys and your background, but like I was always self-employed and I didn't want to have a job. And so like I wrote this book, The $100 Startup, which is all about helping people quit their job, et cetera. Kind of come to realize recently that, a lot of folks don't want to quit their jobs. Like they have a good job, or maybe they want to eventually quit their job, but like they can't right now. They have a family, they have a mortgage, they're not 20 years old. They can't just sneak off to, Southeast Asia or whatever. So really focusing on this notion of like, don't quit your day job, start your side hustle while you're still there, like create security for yourself, like build something as a backup plan, and then we'll see kind of where it goes. So that's my whole focus for this year.
Nice. And as you said, you did a daily podcast where you had a whole bunch of 365 like different people, I guess. So there's no excuses that they're any different. What are, I guess, some of the components of a side hustle? If someone's thinking that sounds like an awesome idea, but what is it? I guess what does it actually look like?
Yeah, of course. So I mean, like different categories of side hustle. Like it can be a service, it can be a product, it can be some kind of like reselling business. And like you said, I try to feature every day on the show, like a different story of somebody who does this in a different way. And for the most part, they're using skills they already have. They're not going out and like learning to code. They're not, like, oh, I need to go and get all these advanced technical skills. So I actually try to feature stories of kind of regular people who are not like building an app or whatever, So I have like a story of next week of this woman. It's a really interesting story. She actually was in an abusive relationship and left that, and she was kind of in poverty, and she had kids and all this stuff. So like no money whatsoever, but she was really good at baking bread. And so she creates this online course about baking sourdough bread and ends up like making $25,000 from this course, like insane, And so the course is like about this low technology thing, like this very basic kind of thing. She ends up building like 10 more courses. It's like intermediate sourdough bread, advanced sourdough bread. Like, no joke. Look it up. It's crazy. And last year she made like $85,000 doing it, So again, these are kind of stories of like, take the skills that you have and find a way to adapt them into an offer. So that's what the book is all about.
Yeah, nice. But I guess some people out there, they don't make it on their first side hustle. They might have gone off and tried to start an online course, and then no one buys it. And they might have tried 3 or 4 different side hustles, and it turns out none of them have quite worked for them yet. So what do you say to the people out there who haven't really, hit a home run with their side hustle?
Yeah, that's a great question. Really, really good. So I would say a couple of things. I would say, first of all, what I try to do when I talk with people is encourage them to cut down the time it takes to actually start that project to less than a month. Like it's a 27-day plan in the book. That way you're not investing a ton of yourself. Like the risk is low. If something doesn't work, okay, great, you're going to try something different. That's the first thing. I think a common mistake a lot of people make is they spend like 9 months thinking about their project before they actually start it. And that's a lot of time, right? It's a whole year essentially with the cycle. So second thing is, a lot of people are in that situation of like they try one thing or they try 2 things and it doesn't work. Most of the time, those tend to be learning experiences, and you kind of understand, okay, here's why it didn't work. Like I thought I had a good idea, but it didn't connect with people, or it was my good idea, but other people didn't value it enough, and that's really critical. So you kind of learn that skill as you go along. It's pretty rare for someone to try to start 10 online courses in a row and fail like every time. Like I'm sure it happens. But I think like as you do it a couple of times, you're going to gain the knowledge and experience to know like what makes you more likely to have a success.
Nice. And I think you mentioned in $100 startup and side hustle as well, because you say for getting to income in 27 days, and is that sort of the key, getting that at first sale, even if it's a couple of bucks and it doesn't mean a whole lot in the grand scheme of things, but there's a lot more to it than those dollars.
Exactly. It's empowering. It's disproportionately empowering. Like maybe you guys have experienced that yourself, but like it's, I get emails all the time from people who are just so excited. Like they, could be 35 years old or 40 and like they've never, worked for themselves. They've always had a traditional job. And so then all of a sudden you get money that comes in. It's not your paycheck. It comes, through PayPal or Venmo or whatever. It's really exciting. And so if you get that, even if it's just $100 or whatever, then it's like you kind of want it more, right? You want to like have that on the regular.
Nice. I've listened to a few episodes of the Side Hustle School, and I think there's some people perhaps have that view to maybe building up the side hustle to one day leave, but there's also a lot of people who still enjoy their job, and even if they're making a full salary from their side hustle, they still want to keep their job. And it's probably even from an employer's point of view, they know that they're not doing it for the money anymore. They actually want to do it.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. Like, I think there's some forward-thinking companies that recognize that. Like, some companies are still kind of afraid. Like, I don't want my employee to like have some other source of income because then they're not dependent on me. But I mean, I hear from some employers who are like, no, I want my employees to be happy. I want them to come to work because they want to be there, not because they just like have this chain around their neck, So, but to your first point, like the motivations for starting this kind of thing are really different, and that's why I think like there's no downside to it. Like your motivations could be different than mine or than somebody else's. Somebody wants an extra $500 a month. Somebody else, maybe like they're an engineer during the day, and so they're like doing this very like analytical skill. That's fine, but then like at night they want to be an artist or do like a different kind of creative skill. So there's all kinds of different reasons, for doing it. But I think the path to doing it is similar.
So what are some of the most common excuses people make for not pursuing a side hustle, you think? And what are the ones, I guess, in your podcast you try and smash through?
Yeah, it's interesting excuses. I think to go back to what we talked about a moment ago, like when we started, people don't necessarily know how. I think that's probably the biggest thing, is they feel disempowered because a lot of the business books that are out there are basically telling them to quit their job, essentially, and like there's something wrong with you if you haven't like risk everything to become a quote unquote entrepreneur. Like not everybody wants to do that. So first thing, they don't really know like what the plan is. They're busy. They don't have a lot of time. They have the full-time job. They already have a family, some other thing. They're probably going to school at night or whatever else, So I think that's the biggest thing, is like, I don't know exactly what to do. I can't do everything. How do I narrow down my choices? That's another one. Like I've got 5 ideas. How do I know which one to do right now? So like in the book, I've had this whole process about like, here's how to evaluate very quickly and intuitively different ideas so that okay, here's which one I should pursue now. And I think just one more point on that. It's not always about like, it's not necessarily like which is the best idea for the rest of your life. If you're making a decision now, and if you get sick of it in 6 months, then you do something else. It's totally fine. I think people have a challenge with that because they're used to like a traditional career, like traditional life decisions like are really, really big. And so you have like there's so much pressure to make the right thing, to go to the right university, or, to pursue the right like corporate ladder approach or whatever. But with the side hustle, if it doesn't work, then, or if you're tired of it, then you try something else.
Yeah, nice. I like that. And if people are listening to this, and we usually use the persona of someone who's sitting at home on a Friday night, watching the footy, drinking a beer, and then sleeping on Saturday. But maybe they've thought that actually this side hustle thing sounds like a good idea that I could put a couple of hours a week towards. What are some of the first steps besides obviously buying the book first of all, and then what after?
Yeah, that's right. That's great. Well, they can listen to the show as well, which is free and online every day. I think so. I got like a 5-step process that I take people through, and first step is idea generation and learning the power of observation, like learning where business ideas come from, like some potential ideas, just kind of getting the skill of being able to brainstorm. So that's a very powerful skill. Second step is what we just talked about. Like once you have ideas. In the long term, ideas are not a problem. Like ideas don't have much value by themselves because, like here's just an idea. You have to do something with it. So the second thing is choosing which idea to pursue. Then it's about developing everything you need to launch that idea. If you need a website, if you need whatever the resources are, like making that happen. Step 4 is actually putting that out into the world, like as some kind of launch. Like what is your marketing? Who are your people? Like who is your ideal customer? How can you reach that person, et cetera? And then the 5th step is, okay, once it's live, like no plan survives contact with the battlefield. Now that it's out there, what have I learned? How do I regroup and refine? Do I continue working on this and improving it? Or do I actually say, no, I need to do a different idea, I'm going to go back? So this is kind of the 5-step process to take people through.
Nice. Love it. Just as we wrap it up now, what are some of the books that have been influential on your life to get to where you are today?
Oh, that's a great question. Okay. I mostly read fiction these days. Like I read a lot of literary fiction because I'm a business author, so I don't really read other business books. Like I try to, have a bit of an original thought once in a while. But I will tell you a couple books. This book called Wishcraft, like not witchcraft, but Wishcraft, Wish, by Barbara Sher. Was really helpful in kind of my thinking, as you mentioned early on, maybe 10 years ago. I read that book, and it's very much about like personal development and lifestyle design. Before that became trendy, before like everybody talked about it, she was actually an early pioneer in that. So that kind of helped me to think big and to kind of identify some goals. And then let's see, what have I been reading recently? I'm reading a Sherlock Holmes book. I don't know if that's been influential in my life. I'm just reading it at the moment.
Yeah.
I read a book about Houdini, which is actually really interesting, like a 500-page biography of this guy, and he did some really interesting stuff. And then one more recommendation, Mountains Beyond Mountains, is the story of Dr. Paul Farmer, and he had this quest to like cure a lot of diseases in Haiti and elsewhere around the world, and I found that pretty inspiring.
Wow, nice. Awesome. I guess just to finish off, where can people find you, your blog, your books, and the podcast?
Yeah, well, thank you. I feel like I need to have an orange or a red book so it can be on your bookshelf behind you, because I noticed you have color categories, which is nice.
I see behind you. You've got it.
My last book actually. Yeah, that's right. My last book had a red cover. Actually, Born for This, exactly. So, Side Hustle School is going to have a yellow cover, so hopefully it'll fit there. Anyway, Side Hustle School is on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can go to sidehustleschool.com. The book Side Hustle should be at any bookstore, Amazon, wherever you shop. And I'm chrisguillebeau.com. And if you can't spell that, just type in Art of Non-Comformity and it will bring you to me.
That's nice one, man.
Fantastic.
Cool as. Thanks, mate. Appreciate it.
Awesome, man. You guys are great. Thanks so much. I love the show.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Cheers, man.
Cheers.
Guys, for us, we think the world would be a better place if they just read books and stopped listening to some of that crap that's on the TV.
Mate, we like a few TV shows, but most of it is just a waste of time.
A lot of the news. So if you guys also believe in our vision and think the world would be a better place if people just read books, give us a review, and then more people find the podcast and more people start reading books.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. Get some books into you.
Yeah.